Pop, quick, pronounce the name of the defensive tackle we drafted in the second round last year. A little throwback to last week's episode if you guys want to go check that out. Pretty funny moment.
Fedarius Martin, right? I messed it up again.
That's how you messed it up last time. His last name is Mathis, man.
Mathis. I got a mental block.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 80th episode of the Dom and Pop DC Sports Talk Plus podcast. Man, we're into the wide receiver numbers now. Pretty crazy, guys. If you're new, if you're old, if you've been here watching, don't forget, let us know in the comments that you love us. Like, comment, subscribe, share to a friend. Thank you so much for tuning in. Pop, man, how you doing?
Doing great. It's been a great weekend so far. Just want to give a quick shout out to the McNamara Alumni Golf Tourney, which is at Renditions Golf Course here in Maryland. It was a great event, as always. Actually got a little bit of a Commamders connection there. I got to meet Lou Holder, who's, local reporter who's, got Emmys and everything else. He actually, I think, teaches at McNamara and, always does a great job on Commamders connections. He was part of our group. So make sure you check Lou's stuff out on YouTube as well. And then I got to meet the legend, Ken Harvey, linebacker for the Commamders. He was telling me about the song he wrote for the Commamders. So make sure you check that out too, or talk a little bit about Doc Walker. So that was great. So shout out to Ken Harris, who is a dear friend that put that all together. And it was a great way to start the weekend. Great event. Lots of Commamders connection there. And, hail to Bishop McNamara, the Mustangs.
Yep, for sure. Go Mustangs. I remember I had one of your old varsity jackets I used to wear around in high school all the time. I wish that still fit me. I outgrew it a little bit. But, yeah, it sounds like an awesome time. Wish I could have been there. But,
1 year.
I take care of business out here in L.A. One of these years I'll make it out.
That's right.
Yeah. So this week, it's pretty slow, all things considered, news-wise. But we figured we would get into a little bit of fun and try out a new segment for us. We're going to call it Buy or Sell. So we're going to break through some of the headlines, some of the big offseason topics. We're going to talk about, do you buy it or do you sell it? And we figured, maybe we tie this back to the whole ownership thing. We've been talking about selling stuff all year, selling the team. So we're going to buy or sell some of the biggest headlines of the offseason, get into it, break it down. So, Pop, you want to start us off with number one?
Yeah, so number one is, will the Commanders have a top 5 defense? So I'll go first since I introduced it. I guess we'll alternate.
All right.
I'm going to say I'm buying that. I'm high on the defense, especially with the, the new blood we've added to the secondary. And I think just another year under the system, and they've reestablished the defensive line coaches. So I'm buying. What about you?
Yeah, I'm buying as well. Especially because of the positive reports coming out about Chase and Montez. It sounds like both of them. It sounds like Chase particularly is highly motivated, is what I've heard. And it seems like he's kind of taking all that Ron talk and, whether or not it results in him staying in D.C., he's taking it to heart. And that means, at least for this year, he's going to ball out, hopefully. So, yeah, I'm buying top 5 defense as well, for sure. So, number 2, Sam Howell will establish himself as quarterback 1 for 2024. Buy it or sell him, Pop?
You go first.
I announced it, so this is an interesting. So for 2024 means not this year, but the year after. It means Sam Howell is going to be our quarterback,
right,
for a little bit. Ooh, that's
He's done enough this year to go into next year as QB1.
I am buying it, and let me tell you why. Not because I think he's going to be the next Joe Montana, unfortunately. I hope I'm wrong. But because I think the Commanders are going to do just well enough. I think we're going to land right in that 7-9 win ballpark, maybe sneak into a wild card. I think they're going to do just well enough that we're not going to be in a position to go get an elite quarterback up at the top of the draft. And the free agency situation is always a little bit shaky. And I think he will establish himself in a similar way that Taylor Heineke did, where we could keep him around as a little bit of a bridge situation while new ownership figures out what they really want to do with the position. So I think, yes, he will establish himself as quarterback one for 2024, but maybe that's his last year. What do you think, Bob?
I think vibes are high on Sam Howell at this point, right? And that's all we can go on is vibes, right? And I think it's a different vibe for me, and maybe I'm just ash burning myself, but to me, it's a different vibe than what we've seen before with say quarterbacks in the past years, right? We tried to kind of convince ourselves into thinking these guys are good, but we're hearing guys like Jahan Dotson this week give interviews and talk about how he thinks we found our guy, and there's just a vibe that it's a clear upgrade of where we've been the last couple of years. And saying that for a second year guy, and look at the 5th round thing is look at Kirk Cousins. You'd like to have a career like Kirk Cousins, and I know he was a 3rd or a 4th. I can't remember, but I don't know if there's that much difference.
Doesn't make a huge difference once you get down the board like
I'm
that.
getting a Kirk Cousins kind of vibe from Sam, and I think he will establish himself as QB1. It'll probably be a little bit of an up and down season, but I think as the season goes on, we're going to say we got a young QB who's shown potential, and he is going to establish himself as QB1 for 2024. I'm buying.
I like it. So 2 buys so far. Wow. Things are looking good. This is a
Super
bullish.
Bowl, here we come.
Bullish start. Pop, go ahead and tee us off for number 3.
Here's where it might shift a little bit. The offensive line will be a solid unit in 2023. So there's a lot of question marks around that line. We're not saying they're going to be like a top 5 line in the league, but they're clearly going to be solid and not hurt us. Let's put it that way. I'm selling on that one. I just still am not convinced that we've done enough on that offensive line. We've talked about that before. I got to sell on the offensive line.
So this is where it gets interesting, and I got to counter your question here to go back to number 2. So you're buying that Sam Howell does well enough to establish himself as our firm starter for the future behind a bad offensive line.
Well, there you go, son. I think the thing is that we're going to see enough from Sam Howell in spite of the offensive line. That question number 2, it'll become more clear as we answer the follow-on questions. Doesn't mean we're going to be necessarily have a great record at the end of the season. It's just that we're going to see out of this player as an individual contributor that he's going to establish himself as QB1, right?
There we go.
That's how I answer that.
I like it. That's a good answer. It's a good answer. I like that. I think I'm still a little traumatized from our past front office situations that we don't really let guys develop. But I'm going to go with buy. I'm going to buy this because of the wording and because of your clarifications where you said they're not going to hurt us. I don't think this is a top 10 unit in the NFL for sure. I think that would be crazy talk. But I believe in the boy Eric Bieniemy. I think there's been a lot of talk about the way he's going to shift the pocket, the way he's going to change protections up front. Scott Turner was as vanilla as you could possibly get when it came to pass protection. It was like a Madden game where you press the L2 button to look at the play art and all you see is the 5 blocks and that's it. Nothing more. Eric Bieniemy is the opposite of that. He's going to be changing up the protection. He's going to be shifting the pocket left and right to help Howell when he needs help. So I think not because of the talent. I'm concerned. Don't get me wrong. It's probably the position group I'm the lowest on of the whole team. But I think because of the coaching and because of the ability of guys like Antonio Gibson to make plays in space, Terry McLaurin to get open off the press.
So Antonio Gibson, where does he play? Center, guard, tackle?
I said because of ability to get open.
We're talking about the line, though. We're talking about the line.
What does it matter?
Everything you're saying is true, right? But I think if coaching has to compensate for poor line play, then
you get the ball out fast. You get the ball out fast. What does it matter what the offensive line does if you hit the running back in the flat within 2 seconds of snapping the ball? That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
I think we're going to look at a very yards after catch heavy offense this year. And so I think because of that, offensive line's not going to matter as much. I think it's going to be a lot of get the ball out.
What I'm hearing is a not very good line that we've got to compensate for. That's what I hear too. But you're still buying.
Yes. I'm still buying because you clarified and you said it's not gonna kill us. And because I bought Howell at number 2, I want to stay consistent. And you know what? We've been picking together a little bit too much. I wanna switch it up a little bit. I want to stir up some controversy for the people. All right. So number 4, the Commanders will be a playoff team, and Ron Rivera will be head coach in 2024. Pop, are you buying or selling that? I want to ask because you wrote this question. Wild card counts, right? We're not talking about winning the division. Okay. Wild card counts. Of course. What are you buying or selling number 4?
You okay this morning, son?
I just want to check on that, man. Come on.
What's going on?
Not enough, son.
Of course, wild card counts. Yeah. I'm going to sell on this one. And I think the picture starts to come together in that, although I think we're going to see some signs of encouragement in Eric Bieniemy's offense, and we're going to see a very, very good defense. I'm just not quite there yet. It could be that if things break the right way, we're a playoff team. I'm just not quite there yet, staying consistent with our offseason prediction so far, although I do think I had them 10-6. So maybe I'm contradicting myself a little bit here. Am I? I don't know. Should I go with a buy? Should I go with a buy? I think I'm going to sell. I don't think Ryan comes back next year. Maybe they end up squeaking into the playoffs, but I just think circumstances work themselves out where he's not back this year. So to me, that's the pivot point.
Yeah, I think if we split this into 2 questions, Commanders will be a playoff team. I'm probably buying that because I just don't know how logically you look at it. If I say we're going to have a top 5 defense and Sam Howell's going to do enough to start, I think that's enough to get a wild card, right? But Ron Rivera being head coach in 2024, do any of us see the Commanders winning a playoff game? Realistically?
Yeah, I linked the 2 together in the question because I kind of thought if they make the playoffs, it's going to be tough to fire a head coach at that point.
See, I disagree because you look at I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the guy that was head coach of the Warriors before Steve Kerr. I can't believe I'm losing his name.
Yes, it's famous coach. The announcer.
But they fired him. They fired him after they were the 8th seed and they made the playoffs. And Golden State had been moving in the right direction, but they kind of stalled out. They fired him. They saw the talent. I think it's going to be a similar situation here. So I'm going to sell this as well because I just don't think Ron Rivera hangs around. You hitting us with a little Google for that name drop, Pop?
I'm trying to, but anyway, never mind. Don't keep going.
I'll do number 5 while you.
We're killing our flow.
All right. Yeah, we need a fact checker. If anybody wants to come on as a production intern to do some fact checking, let us know. But number 5, Eric Bieniemy. It's an unpaid position, by the way. As soon as we start getting paid, we'll help. But for now, number 5, Eric Bieniemy will be NFL head coach in 2024. I like how you said NFL, not Washington. Pop, I'm going to let you answer this one first.
Mark Jackson, by the way. I don't know how.
Mark Jackson.
Neither one of us could pull that.
That was the name.
Cats of the week to Diamond Pop.
To
just watched him announce the whole NBA Finals.
To be fair, he got fired like 6 years ago at this point. It's been a while.
We watch him on TV every game.
Man, it might have been a decade ago at this point. Anyways, I'm starting to feel old. Eric Bieniemy will be an NFL head coach in 2024. Pop, you buying it or selling it?
I'm buying it. I think if the offseason were today, just seeing the work he's done so far and how impressive he's been in front of the press and practice, I think there's already probably owners out there with their eye on Bieniemy, so I'm totally buying that. I think maybe in Washington that he's a head coach.
Ooh, cue the X-Files music. I'm buying it too. I think Eric Bieniemy came here because he knew he was going to be head coach in 2024. That's my hot take. So I've got him being head coach in the NFL and in Washington. Because
I was going to ask you, taking it one step further, you're predicting he's going to be the Commanders' head coach.
Yeah, I want to get out ahead of that. I know I'm not the first one to say it. I certainly won't be the last. I'm predicting that because if not, that Monday Night Football graphic when he's the head coach of the Bears and they're playing the Rams, that one's going to really hurt. McVay, Shanahan, Bieniemy, LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell. Oof.
That's yeah, I've said it already. I don't think you can let him. If, things go well, just put it that way. Yeah. You got to say that, right? I mean, if things fall apart and maybe, the only question mark with Bieniemy is does his coaching style fit, the modern player will wear thin after a while because he coaches so hard. But I think if it goes well, you can't let him leave the building. I just don't think you can. And if that's sitting down with Ron and say, let's bump you up to a cushy, front office type role or that kind of thing. I just think you can't let him leave the building. Just can't.
Yeah, I think you see like a Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles kind of situation. BA knew the team wasn't headed somewhere where he thought he was going to be able to keep his job, passed it off to Todd Bowles, gave him an opportunity. He gets to take the team over.
Yeah.
Number 6, Chase Young will be a Commander in 2023 and 2024. Sell. He's gone. I don't even know if he's going to be a Commander in 2023. Definitely not in 2024. What do you think? You buying or selling?
If you equate this one to placing a bet, right? The classic, you gotta place a bet. You gotta bet against, being part of the team for 2 more years, I think. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I'm selling on that one as well.
Yeah. So that's you gotta just sell. I mean, if you said 2023, maybe I'd buy it. I probably would buy it 2023, but 2023 and 2024.
That's why you gotta dig a little deeper in these questions, son.
It's too much possibility. Man, I'm glad you weren't like my English teacher or my statistics teacher, because you would have been that teacher that puts one last clause at the end of a question that changes the whole answer. And then answer A is if you didn't read through the whole thing, that would have been the right answer. And you know me, I'm bubbling in A.
I would have been throwing pop quizzes in there like nothing.
Oh, man. Another one. Ah.
Wait till the last. The best one was I had a teacher in high school. He'd wait till the last 10 minutes of class, throw out the pop quiz. You thought you were scot free, and he would just take out and say, "Hit pop quiz."
That's tough. That's
I might have to start that on Dom Pop Show. We'll see.
Little pop quiz action. It's hard. Pop, quick. Pronounce the name of the defensive tackle we drafted in the 2nd round last year. We'll throw back to last week's episode if you guys want to go check that out. Pretty funny moment.
Fedarius Martin, right? I messed it up again.
That's how you messed it up last time. His last name is Mathis, man.
Mathis. I got a mental block. Sorry, Fedarius. I got the first name right this time, though, right?
Oh, my God. I don't think that's his first name. I think it's like Phildarian or Darian. I'm not 100% sure. That's a tricky one. We'll learn. Tell you what.
That was cold, son.
Tell you what. Start getting some TFLs. Start getting some sacks this season. We're gonna learn that name real quick. I tell you.
No, my bad. I don't mean any disrespect.
No disrespect. No disrespect at all.
The old Nuggets getting
low. He's hurt. We know he's hurt. It's all good. So real quick, speaking of, I brought the boy up, AG. Speaking of guys that are almost definitely not going to be Commanders in 2024, Antonio Gibson, is his job in jeopardy, Pop? Because I'm hearing a little bit of stirs about Kareem Hunt to Washington. How do you feel about that? I'll give you my take after you give us yours, but just real quick, let's touch on this real quick.
It's hard to know whether this is just one of those internet rumors, although I guess there are some pretty reputable people reporting on it now.
Yeah.
I don't think it's I didn't really equate it to an Antonio Gibson, threat at all. I just think if you look at that running back room, AG is the only 3rd down type change of pace back they have, right? And so if you want to carry 4 running backs, it makes sense to mix it up. Where that 4th guy is a guy like Kareem Hunt, who, also I think has led the league in rushing early on and had, he's still fairly young. I know he's had some off the field stuff, which has, been kind of brutal and wasn't necessarily very productive last year. But he's got some ties, obviously, to Eric Bieniemy. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one. Just not sure.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I would have been, super happy.
Oh, my God.
I love the player, but now I'm just not certain.
I mean, he was in his short stint in Kansas City when he was young on his first contract, when he was just lighting the league on fire. He was as dynamic of a talent as I've ever seen at running back. He was unbelievable. But running backs on their 2nd, 3rd contracts, they age exponentially. It's really not. And I don't personally think a guy like Hunt, he is a great receiving back, but he's also like, I don't think he's any better at this point in his career than Gibson is in terms of receiving out of the backfield. I mean, he was wholly ineffective in Cleveland last year. The year before that, he was pretty decent, but last year he was just useless. And that team as a whole was really bad. But I don't know. This one doesn't make sense to me just because I think you're going to have to pay a little bit of a premium for the name brand on Kareem Hunt. And I'd rather just go get a shifty young dude. It's a shame McKinnon, I know he's not young, but it's a shame McKinnon didn't pan out because that would have been. I think that's more of a fit, like a real pure gadget guy. But then again, look at Curtis Samuel. He's right there. Maybe we don't need a fourth running back. Maybe Curtis Samuel can operate as our fourth running back. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, the
right?
question I think with Kareem is it the player or is it the situation that he was in? That's the question you have to answer, right? I mean, he was playing with another all-star back, who's probably going to be on the field most of the time. There's some changes going on there at quarterback and trying to find their feet in that offense. So I guess that's what you'd be gambling on.
He's going to be 28.
That's still pretty young.
Not for a running back. Not for a running back.
Still pretty young. He's got a lot of miles still left on his tire.
He might. I'm selling on Kareem Hunt. Are you buying or selling real quick?
If I had to choose, I'm selling. It's nothing. It's not anything that gets me overly excited.
I agree. I just think it's a little too much to pay for some extra depth, and I think Antonio Gibson is just a better football player than him at this point in each of their careers. Prove me wrong. Time to get in. I don't know why I said number. Time to get into the NBA talk. All right, you guys have been waiting for it. It's Italians Talking NBA, our fastest growing segment, one of the people's favorite segments. I say we get right down to it. It has been a whirlwind of the NBA playoffs. I effed up. I should have went right to Caesars.
Denver and
put some money down at my first gut reaction, which was Denver in 5. I knew it was going to be Denver in 5. I just didn't have the Polinas to lock that one in. So I blew it, and I said Denver in 7, which was Pop's prediction as well. But, I mean, that one wasn't even close. Pop, do you have any reactions there? Anything you want to say about the NBA Finals wrapping up before we get to our Wiz talk?
I mean, I think, we've talked a lot about this already, and just congrats to Denver, right? Congrats to Jokic, congrats to Murray. Some of the post game, they're just such a fun team to have won. I mentioned the tourney earlier, and we were chopping up a little bit about the NBA Finals, and just everyone to a man just was talking about how much they love Jokic and the type of player he was. And the post game was hilarious. He lost his MVP trophy. He was just focused on getting home and upset when he found out the parade was 2 days later. And I mean, just to see, it's so refreshing to see an NBA star that's all about just, putting the work in, and such a phenomenal player. And I think we've talked about this before, but Denver is that organic team, right? They've kind of gone against the grain in terms of that super team approach, and you love to see that too. The way the fans reacted and all of it was great. It felt old school, if I dare say that, in terms of how they won that title. And they're clearly the best team. I mean, they could be in for a 2-3 year run here.
Yeah, they could be at the start of building something. Something
feel a little
special
Golden State-ish in a way. I mean, in a different way. But just the right guys, right time, coming up. 2 superstars. I think they've got a real chance to make a run.
I agree. They're going to have to watch out for the boy Victor Wembanyama in the West next year. That should be interesting. That's
Still
the only. I mean, that guy's maybe the only answer to Jokic, right? If you talk in terms of pure talent and size, but
there is no answers to Jokic.
I'm talking potentially. I mean, there's obviously no answers right now, but if you talk about his size, but Denver's setting up to be a juggernaut, I think, and they've got a great coach. They really they run things the right way over there, and Jokic is it's really just going to come down to if he's interested enough. to keep going. Maybe he pulls an okey doke. Maybe after this contract is up, he's like, yeah, I made my money. Back to Eastern Europe. But man, he's a tank. It's scary. It's scary how good that guy is, and like I said, it's just league breaking. There's nothing you can do about that guy. You just gotta hope the rest of the team can play, and he doesn't make a play on every ball. So let's do it. Let's do it. You guys have probably been sitting here waiting. Are they going to talk about it? We're going to talk about it, but we saved it to the end because you know what? Watch time is important, and if you guys have been watching this long, you deserve a little reward. Bradley Beal, probably not going to be a Wizard. I'd wagered a bet he's played his last game in the red, white, and blue. Worst rebrand of all time, but that's for another episode. Bradley Beal, no longer a Wizard. Trade talks heating up. We're hearing about what? The Phoenix and Miami seems to be the top two contenders here.
That's what's.
What do you think about all that, Pop?
Today.
Make some sense of all of this for
well,
our
let's
viewers.
take a step back because we haven't really talked about it, right? So
there you go.
The Wizards have completely rebuilt their front office, right? So they got Michael Winger from the Clippers as GM. They've got, sorry, he was GM of the Clippers. Now he's president of Monumental Basketball. So he's got the whole thing, all the teams associated with Monumental Basketball. Will Dawkins from OKC, he's great young talent as general manager. And even Travis Schlenk, who was a VP of basketball operations for the Hawks, is now as SVP of player personnel. They've called this a super team. Some reporters have called this a super team in the front office. Personally, time will tell. But yeah, they're moving quickly on this Brad Beal deal. It's the right thing to do. The biggest problem with the construction of this team, and I hate to say it because I love Brad as a guy and as a player, but it's a fact that they've built it around a player that just isn't that guy. He's not that number one. He's not the number one in many areas, in my opinion. And again, no offense, but I just don't think he's the leader. He's not really that dog. He's not a guy you want to play with isolation at the end of the game, but it almost feels like they almost have to do that to not hurt his feelings. It's just time to move on. And a Brad Beal trade, in whatever form it comes out, I like how the Miami deal's looking quite a bit better than the Phoenix deal because with Miami, they've got picks to trade. And that's ultimately what I want to get out of this deal is picks. Whereas Phoenix doesn't have a first-round pick till 2031, which I don't know how the heck that happened, right?
But, the Durant deal.
Yeah. I guess, a couple of trades in there and Durant being the big one. But I think it has to happen, and if it happens pretty quick, nothing against Brad. I think you said you'd love to see him in Miami, still be rooting for him to do well, except when he plays the Wiz. It's got to happen. And I just think in general, right, trading away Brad, signing, trading Kuz, and trying to get a trade with Porzingis who feels like he's going to opt into his deal, be the best case scenario. Just collect those assets, collect those draft picks up, and let's just rebuild. It's going to be a painful couple of years. But if I think we see these young guys could show a little bit of a spark and some hope for the future, I'll still be watching.
Yeah. Well, you look at the best teams around the NBA, they all blew it up. And then after they blew it up, they built it back. I mean, Milwaukee was just always bad, and then they got Giannis. Philadelphia had the famous shout out. Maybe we're going to see this on the Commanders. Philadelphia had that famous trust the process situation. First couple of years of Josh Harris ownership, he blew the whole thing up.
Right.
Built up a lot of draft picks, and now they're perennial contenders. Haven't quite gotten over the hump yet. But I'd say, you look at a team that you want your team to be in the NBA, I think the 76ers are as close to the top as you want. And the way they built that was blowing it all up, getting a lot of young talent, and then being aggressive and moving off of the young talent when it wasn't headed in the right direction, like Fultz, Ben Simmons as well. So I'm hoping we can do something like that here, and I hope the Bradley Beal situation is a catalyst of that. It's sad, man. I love that guy in terms of a player. He's probably the best Wizard of my lifetime, which is sad. It's just the state of the basketball team. Maybe Arenas or John Wall hit higher highs, but in terms of their entire career as a Wizard, it's got to be Brad. And man, it's tough. It's tough because there were some fun. I was thinking about it on my drive to get coffee this morning. There were some fun Wizards teams with Brad Beal back in the day. You know, when
Right.
you had Brad and John Wall and they were actually working together. That one year that we swept Atlanta in the first round, and then
Right.
John got hurt in the second round, unfortunately. Man, that was so much fun. And it's just a shame that we were never able to really, I think, through both bad coaching for a really long time with Scott Brooks and bad general managing for the entirety of my lifetime, we never were able to get back to that,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And I think it's just a,
You can't blame bad for the situation, right? But I
I
just think at
agree.
the end
That's
of
what
the
I was trying to
day,
get to.
yeah, you know, they reached that crossroads, and the road they took to go super max with a guy that just, I'm sorry, you know, was a great number two, great number three, definitely a guy you can win with. I think him on a team like Miami, depending on who they have to give up, but if they can keep their core starting group together, that could be dangerous, right? Now he becomes a second or third guy, but it
Yeah.
just put them in a bad position. And I just hated the fact that they had to play in a certain way. They felt obligated to play through Brad. And to me, he was best when, you know, we played through John Wall, right? And he
Yeah.
was just setting up for his shots or getting his in the flow of the offense rather than being, you know, that player that we tried to make him into.
Yeah. And it was, he was, like you said, and I used to always say this too, when he came to DC, he was a catch and shoot guy. And
Yeah.
he completely revamped his game. And it's so James Harden at this point, his game. It's Houston Rockets James Harden. It's ISO ball. He's getting in the paint, he's drawing the foul, and then he's gonna pull up if you back off. That's how Brad plays. And it's just been without a guy like John Wall orchestrating the whole offense, it's been wholly ineffective. And I think he's incredibly inefficient. And he's the kind of guy that somebody who's not really into basketball but looks at the stats is going to tell you, oh, you build a team around this guy. And unfortunately, I think to get back to it not being Brad's fault, I think the coaches that we've had in the past and the front office we've had in the past, unfortunately, have been that type of guy. They're like, oh, this guy scores 60. How can we let him go? Well, at what cost does he score 60? And when does he score 60? He scores 60 when we're down by 30. What's that worth? Where is he in game seven? He's a ghost. Puts up
Well, and
25
then
points. That's not enough.
and the quote,
Like,
like B mentioned, Doc Walker, right? I mean, the best ability is availability, and he
and he's
hasn't
hurt
been
all the
available
time.
either. He's hurt a lot. Can't get our
Yep.
guys on the court. So I think it's time to move on. And it's amazing how quickly it's gone from announcing the front office and not really sure what direction they're going to go to all this momentum build it up. I mean, we talk about Phoenix and Miami. There's a long list of teams. You brought up Philly without
Yeah.
listing them all out. There's a lot of teams where he might make sense. The contract's a bit of a problem, but maybe they can work that out.
Yeah. Boston would also make sense. They've got obviously the connection to Jason Tatum. Brad Beal used to drop Jason Tatum off at school growing up. Those guys grew up together. They know each other very well. Jaylen Brown is kind of up in the air whether or not he's going to get supermax or not. If you decide you want to move on from Jaylen Brown, you want another supermax player. Brad Beal is right there. Whether he fits it in Boston or not, I don't know. I know a lot of Celtics fans personally that are all over it. They want him to come, and I say y'all can have him. And so,
No.
what direction we want to make, I think we're both in the same page. Blow it all up, get as many assets as we can, and let's try and find that star talent. Because at the end of the day, you had a really well constructed team in Miami, and then you have the terrifying star talent in Jokic and a decent team around him in Denver, and they made quick work of him. At the end of the day, it's the guy that is the hardest to defend. Always is just that's usually the team that wins the series in the NBA. So
Yeah, I think, you
definitely
know,
going
as a
for
fan, what frustrates you more? Like for me, is it getting to 38 wins and kind of toying with being in the playoffs, but in the end
yeah,
just kind of fizzling out? Or is it 20, 25 wins, but knowing that got a young team, they're growing, maybe seeing some sparks here and there from the young players. Personally, for the next couple of years, if I know we're rebuilding and we're stocking up draft picks, I'd feel better about the direction of the team. And it's scary
yeah,
because you just don't know where that next star player is going to come from. But you got to have faith in the new front office guys to get us there. So,
yeah, and let's just hope they can do it. I mean,
yeah,
at the end of the day, that's all you can do. And I think the best course of action right now, blow this thing up, sell the talent while it's still worth something. I think if you keep Porzingis around for another year, he might not be worth anything. But right now, it might be worth something. So
no, you gotta. Unfortunately, at this point, I think you gotta trade all three guys and just start it over.
Definitely, this team has no business having a supermax player. So with that, let's wrap this thing up. What do you say, Pop?
Sounds great. Another fun
episode. Another great episode. I was just about to say that. The boys got to work today. Guys, let us know. It's kind of an interactive episode. Let us know in the comments, what are you buying or selling? What do you like? What don't you like? How are you feeling about it? Please tell us everything. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Always 80 episodes. 80. This is the Jerry Rice episode, man. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Can't believe it.
Unreal.
Let's wrap this thing up. Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thanks for another great week, guys.